Hello everybody and welcome back to On the Workbench. This is episode number 42 and it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to combine some things. Now this is a piece that was done with oil paints, actually in a recent Twitch session. Now you can catch it there on the Twitch channel, but I'm also going to just take the raw video and get that up on YouTube so people can see that too. But what we want to do is three different things. Now this is all dry. We want to actually do a few little acrylic things on it maybe just to show you that yes, you can paint acrylics over the top of this. It works. It just has to dry and that's it. We also want to sculpt some mushrooms on there, and you can see it all around me, all around the picture here. You got tree fungus, you got floor fungus, you got lots of fungus among us. It's everywhere. We got a lot of floor space here, and we got lots of tree space. This big old kind of open canvas here, and what I want to try and do is these guys over here where my thumb is, put those on the tree, and these guys over here all along here. I think that should be really fun. Maybe even sculpt some tree roots, I don't know, but definitely want to focus on the different types of fungus. I haven't had a chance to do the tree fungus, I think, at all. Maybe a little bit when I did some forest bases 7 years ago. So, and never like this on a nice little tree like that. So I really have to give that a shot. I think it's going to be very fun. We are going to use a couple of things here. Once those are, well, green stuff, obviously. Just like you saw in the basing video with those Gondor, the Dolheimroth heads that we did. I recognize these same two tools. We're going to use those. And then especially if you remember this. And you can see on the pictures on the left-hand side there, we use this. This was really fun. This has worked out very well. I really enjoyed this. It has a real different texture to it. Now, we may use some of this. I don't know. I kind of doubt that. We'll just set that aside. But maybe we even play with some of these guys here as we paint our different funguses. If that's a fungi, whatever the word happens to be. These are from Green Stuff World. We are thinking about doing some type of foliage here from Wicked Elf. Could be any one of these threes or all three. I'm leaning really towards these two guys here. So most likely one of these two guys. So we'll have that. That'll be in a different stage of the video. And then we've got a couple of different things from Luke's APS. You have seen me using this before. This has really become sort of a favorite of mine, this ground cover right here. We also have more of a dirt type, so I'm gonna just get that out here. Open this guy up. This is another type that I've really enjoyed, so we'll probably play, it depends which color I like more, but we might play with this one too. I really like this one. I think this is the pine forest ground cover. So we'll try and play with a couple of these guys, see how that goes. We also have some of this from Woodland Scenics. That's the green flock. You can see it in the bases on the left-hand side. We will probably be using, for sure, some of our Luke's APS glue. We're going to find that. That's it looks kind of like a PVA type glue, but it dries a little bit faster, and we've used that a lot. That has worked out pretty well. And the plan is, first we sculpt, we'll get those mushrooms and all the other stuff in. Then we do some more painting on him, and the hope is that while we're painting on him, the green stuff at least solidifies enough so that we can paint it in the next stage. And then the next stage after that, we do whatever foliage type things we're going to do, and hopefully everything is all dry and solidified by then. So that kind of gets you through some of the materials. We're going to get out our material. We're going to roll out some green stuff, get that ready to go. And I think it's going to be very fun. I'm really looking forward to doing a bunch of them along here. Maybe even a few on this other little tree here. I think that's going to be very fun. So let's get to it next. We're back and we're going to review a few things from previous videos. Now, if you had seen now I guess I'll put a link to it. So over here on the left, I actually did a video on sculpting those mushrooms, and that was part of the basing video extravaganza. And one of the things we used were some metal pins basically, and we used basically pieces of paper clip, and those were pretty thick and they were pretty tough to cut, tough to work with. I mentioned florist wire, and I know it's in the house, and I just saw it the other day. I can't find it, and I was about to give up, and then I thought, wait a minute, we have a bazillion of these stupid twist ties. You guys have twist ties, and that twist tie wire is about the consistency of, guess what, the florist wire, because it's easy to bend. It still has some strength to it, but it's just easier to manipulate than something like a paper clip. So let me see if I can find you a paper clip here somewhere, and these are just so much tougher to move around. Here we go. So you can see it's thicker, and it just, I'm trying to bend that, and it's not really bending here. It's like boink. But once the green stuff is around it, that'll be just good. So this is this kind of thing I was looking for, first of all. Second of all, mix in your green stuff. Remember, we don't want to mix a gigantic mound of this stuff. You don't need a big old mound of it. Second thing about the green stuff, boy, that looks kind of like a brain right there, is that the more blue you have, you're going to have a little more firm mixture. The more yellow that you have, it's going to be more malleable. You'll be able to do more details with it, but it's also going to be smushier. Now, for the tree fungus, that's maybe not so big a deal. It's basically that simple shelf fungus. But for the mushrooms, we really got to make sure there's a little more blue in them. And we did that for the other mushrooms. Now, a third factor here, it all of a sudden got much warmer here. So it's pretty warm in this room where I'm filming things. So this stuff is going to be even more smushy than it might have been. So we're going to just go with this ratio. So that's almost, darn near, a 2-to-1 ratio of blue to yellow. We also have some water here too. Well, let's just start to mix it. I was going to mix this stuff and have it ready to go, and then I realized no. This whole thing of it being more of a blue than, say, just a straight 50-50 green stuff mix. That was sort of a revelation to us. We didn't know about it, and it was very important that we did know. See, this is a little bit more like the consistency. See how it's like a bluish green instead of that sort of brighter green like that. So, let's just we'll go with this. We'll go with this mixture here. Now we have to start thinking, where are we going to put these things? And my first efforts are going to be down here. Probably another one over here, I would say. I think the last thing we'll do is the tree shelf fungus there. So, whoops, let's get that not into our regular green stuff, which means I've got to start thinking about wherever I put my, that's so small, it got away from me. And remember, look at the mushroom formations. Well, let us make this picture bigger so you can see it there. See how everything is kind of in threes? And you have the big dominant mushroom, then you have the smallest one, and then you have one in between. They're always in triangles. See, even the top one there, there's one small one next to a larger one, and then there's kind of the big one off to the side. We are going to do that here also. And these will primarily be for the biggest mushrooms here. Now this, the nice thing about this is it's so thin I can easily cut it with the scissors without damaging the scissors. You do that to a paper clip, you're going to have a little chunk taken out of your scissors. So I'm just going to cut a few of these larger ones, and then maybe a somewhat smaller one here. Next thing, because I'd have to drill into the wooden base here, I'm going to have to, well, get a drill bit. Now, this is also going to be a little bit thicker, clearly, than the wire that we have. I've got to plan these out here. So if I want a bigger, more dominant one here, then a small one here, and then a medium one here. So 1, 2, 3. That means I'm going to have to try and somehow get a hole drilled into here. And then one for the other mushroom here, like so. And yes, the hole's a little bit bigger, but remember, we're also going to have some green stuff around our... And I just want to make sure I actually got the hole sitting there I can get into. So a hole there. Where's the hole over here? All right. Let's do this. So to keep that from sticking, I'm actually going to take some water and just pop that over here. There we go. And, well, I know one of my little pieces went flying, so I'm just going to cut another one. Like that. And of course the water managed to get onto my magnifier light. So we're just going to wipe that away real quick here. Bear with me. And always using the water. I just don't like using the Vaseline or whatever greasy type stuff. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to take some of the top off of that. So we've got a little knob right there. Oh, I'm going to see if I can't get this a bit closer for you here. Ah, that's better. Do I want to go that close? Well, not sure if I want to go quite that close, but we'll see how that works out. So we want a big old mushroom top for this. Let's set that down into the water. That way, well, the plan is that it doesn't stick. Does that happen? I don't know. And then you see how we do this. We sort of pinch along the edges, but it's not a circle. We're not looking for a perfect circle. Then we take some water here, and we sort of wipe away a little bit of our thumbprints there. Alrighty. Let's grab this guy here. And you can see it's just like making a little umbrella. This is not rocket science. It's pretty simple. We just push it down. And in the effort of pushing it down, see how there's undulations to it. It's not perfectly level. It's not perfectly round. Now you could do a more cone-shaped mushroom if you so desire. For whatever reason, I sort of like these flat top ones. I like the ones that have the flatter tops. They're really fun to paint. It's not like I wouldn't want to paint the other type, the more skinny cone ones that have all of the little polka dots and stuff. See, even a few fingerprints, not so bad as long as they don't look like fingerprints. It gives that little texture. So we're going to set this down. And what we're hoping to do, we'll see how cartoonish this gets. But we're going to throw a little glue in there. A little touch of glue. And let me see what sort of... I'm looking for... There we go. Let's see if this works. We'll see if this works right here. And the idea is, we figure out wherever the heck that hole is, which now seems to have quite thoroughly disappeared. Alright, so before I completely destroy that mushroom, I'm just going to re-drill that hole. Because it just completely... well, there it is. That's better. Let's try this again. We're going to put some more glue in there. I think now I'll be able to see it. At least that was the plan. There we go. Now it's down in there. I'm going to get some water on my hand so my hand doesn't stick to this thing. And now I'm going to take my other tool here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to drag this green stuff down. And hopefully it will meet with the ground. I might have to, on other ones, maybe I'll put some more green stuff on there. Or just leave the pin a little bit shorter. But now, you can see that's got a little bit of support to it. a little bit of support. I might even put a smaller mushroom kind of directly underneath that too, maybe. All right, I'm just gonna make that hole a little bit bigger so we can see. Oh, look, there's my other piece of wire. So we'll go with this again. Have another stab at making a stem like we did before. Make sure there's enough of a stem there, and now we will do another little mushroom top here, and hopefully this one in relation to the other one is just a bit smaller. And I do think we've got it slightly smaller. You just have to expect a bit of cartoonishness with this. You're going to drop things, they're going to stick to you and not to the things you want them to. That's sort of the way of sculpting with green stuff. Alright, put that again into our water. Here's some glue. Now the other thing too that I've got to think about is just scrape away some of the junk from that last application there. Remember we used blue tack to also support those while they were curing. Grab that. Get it pointed in the right direction. That settled down in that hole a little bit easier. Just a bit easier. Now we'll push that puppy down in there. And if you get gunk like this, see there's like super glue and all other kinds of stuff on that. A couple things you can do. Not the least of which is take a file and file that stuff away. Because believe me, I've done this 1,000 times on this same exact tool. However, we do want to get some water on there so that it doesn't stick. And we go, and now we want to maybe bend our mushroom a little bit. And that other one, maybe we just got a little bit of our pin is starting to stick through there a little bit, so I'm going to just get myself a small little piece on top of there. We'll just kind of sculpt that in. Move it around. Manipulate this a little bit too. So now they got a little bit of an angle. And with what's left of our green stuff, we will do a small one now. And it's going to be, everything is relative, kind of, to compare it to, say, the ones that we did on the little tiny goblins. These might be a bit bigger than those. Alright. Now this one doesn't have a pin, so we've got to attach this like so, and then we smush it down again. Get it as close to the other ones as we can. Then we're going to have to grab a tool right here. And this is where I was thinking it should live, is right about here. You gotta make sure it's relatively secure. See, that also lowers it down to the ground. And there's our little triangle there. Maybe this should be a bit closer to the big one. So I just scooted him. That's better. Getting a little close to the other one. That's more like what I wanted to see. So Again, a triangle, the biggest one, medium size, smallest one next to that. Now let's mix up a bit more of this here again. And we're definitely using the more blue to yellow ratio because it's kind of hot in here. And by hot, I mean it's 72 degrees or something. Believe me, I've done this stuff in the wintertime when it's more like 64, 65 degrees in the house, and this stuff is like a rock. And that's with mostly yellow in it. So this is the stronger, firmer mixture, and look at that. This was wintertime. This thing right here would be more like a board. So keep that in mind wherever you are. You have to always be aware of, and it works that way with the painting too. You always, with the oils, right? How humid is it? How hot is it? How cold is it? Dry? Whatever. Now what I'm trying to do is some very small mushrooms here. And this will sort of fill out the rest of them now. We'll grab our little tool here. Oh, see, I want a plant to be over there, so let's just have a mushroom be right there. By his feet. There we go. A little small one right there. Sort of like a trail that leads up to him. I don't know, maybe he's just looking for mushrooms. Or he's got, that's what his stick is. He found people getting into his truffles. He didn't like that. And then he's taking care of it. He's dealing with those pesky little, I don't know if it's hobbits or something that got into his mushroom patch. And he is not happy about that. But this is what's going to give this a little more energy and life too, is if you have some different sizes. As many different sizes as I can. Work my way into this so it's almost kind of inverted, and then we just push it down. Can't using the water to push that down. If it's got an irregular shape to it, all the better. So there's another, again, a little small one here. Just trying to get this on the end of the tool. It has a lot of water on it, and you can see now where it wants to just stick to things and not stick to other things. There is, this is a very short mushroom. Now, before I do anything else, I'm just going to forget about this. I'm going to just take some of this blue tack here. I'm going to try and support these. Also have to keep in mind that these wheels kind of stick to the blue tack, so it's supporting, it's going up against the stalk, but also supports the canopy as well. We need to do that over here too. Well, that could be just a bit too much. Could be just a little bit too much there. I'm going to use this tool to get it down in there. If I can't, without destroying everything. There. See, it just basically nestles that in. Now, this is already kind of pushed against that, so it doesn't really need any more support. However, I'm going to do like a second triangle over here. And this one's going to be even smaller. Geez, this is going to be a tough one to sculpt here. This will be an interesting one to sculpt. So this might even be more comical here. We shall see. All right, so there's a little. Again, it's, if it was those goblins there, it wouldn't seem so small. But against this big old troll here, walking around, That'll be plenty big enough. So we'll separate that from our tool. And here's a second little kind of triad of shrooms. And that one's going to be right up against that rock. And the idea is that the rock is going to support that pretty much as it dries. See, we got a nice little trail of mushrooms that leads up into that. So I can even do stuff like this. See, putting a few little dings into the canopies of the mushrooms there to make them look a little bit less artificial and maybe a little more natural. Alright, so there is your mushroom. Now I might put a couple more here, but I gotta make sure I leave room for foliage as well. So I might just throw a couple more here. But the next thing we're going to do is our shelf. Yeah, we'll do our shelf fungus next. Yeah, there's your little mushrooms right there. So I added a couple of more of the mushrooms there just to get a couple to have on the back there. Gonna just make sure that these are sticking to their little, they're secured to their holding points so that they don't tip over too much. And then we mixed some more. This is for our shelf. Now this has a little more of the yellow in. As leery as I am about it being that soft and smushy, I need to make sure it's going to actually stick to the tree. Now there's a couple of ways we could do it. We could actually stick some green stuff to the tree and then have these mushrooms stick to it, or the fungus here stick to it. I'm kind of hoping we don't have to do that. What I'm going to do is start with that. Inevitably there's one big piece and then the rest sort of build off of that. Now it's very much like, let me get some more of the water here. It's just like doing the mushrooms. We're just doing like a half of the shelf of the mushroom. Now we got to find ourselves a good place to put this. And then we have to see how it sticks. If it sticks well, then I don't have to worry too much. If it doesn't stick very well, then I might have to modify. But it seems to be sticking okay. I also got to make sure. Now remember, ideally, this just, with the mushrooms, those just sit there and completely solidify before I start screwing around with this. So I'm again pushing the envelope a little more than I probably would want to here. I'm actually going to start using my hand on this since it seems to be relatively secure. But you can see we're putting some undulations in that too. And again, this is the big one here. And then we'll make some smaller ones. And they also have to sort of intertwine around it. You don't want them just in a quite literally vertical row. We don't want that. Alright, I think that pretty much solidifies that one. As I don't want to cover the entire tree with these because we wanted to do some mossy things and lots of other effects too. So, alright, here's another. Again, this one's going to be, we're already starting to think smaller. Gotta make sure I have enough of that water. Always have to have that water on hand. I need to also make the ends of these a little bit more pointy. And this is where we offset it. I'm going to see if I can use this one. I'm going to see if I can use this tool. And my hope is, see how I'm able to just, it might even cut some of this off. That's okay. See what that does? I'm really just kind of cutting some of that away. A little sneaky trick there. And as I do these and I get more of a system down, it's sort of like the mushrooms. You just start to get a little bit of a rhythm going. And I'm just going to stretch this one out. And then again, we put some little bit of undulations in that so that it's not perfectly flat. Now let's really start to get some smaller. We got some big ones in here. Let's go a bit smaller now. And we'll try and do some even smaller patches if that's possible. Like I said, I haven't really done this a whole bunch before, so and this is gonna get more interesting as these things get smaller too. Now that one, I'm gonna make that actually a little bit smaller. It's weird. I thought that was gonna be too small, and then it turned out to actually be almost too big. Well, that's really going to stick to my fingers. So it is advisable to get some water on your fingers, too. You know, I'm just going to put this on the tool. Put this on the tool, and now it's going to go over here. Well, at least that's the plan. But if there's too much water like that, sometimes a little bit of that water's got to go away. It's going to be like that. It's a delicate balance of, well, I need enough water so that it doesn't stick to me, but not so much that it won't stick to what I want it to. And in that case, I'm just going to go with a different tool here and be a little bit more aggressive with it. Maybe even that doesn't work. I'm going to just move to a different area here, one that doesn't have quite so much water on it. And I've got to be aware of where my hands are, because otherwise I'm just going to crush those other mushrooms that are there. And this one's really being super uncooperative, and I'm not quite sure why. It just does not want to stick whatsoever. So in that case, I'm just going to chuck that one off to the side and we'll make another one. Actually, what I'm going to do is make another pattern somewhere else, just away from that. Sort of like the oils. Let those oils settle. And I was thinking this could be sort of difficult to get these in place because the mushrooms we have space. Here we don't really have a lot of space. I'm going to explore another method here. So instead of putting them on one at a time, let's try this. I didn't really want to have to do this, but I think I'm just going to have to. I think maybe you can see what's happening here. We're just putting a bunch of strips on here, and we're going to attach first, sculpt later. I don't really like this idea. But as you can see, at least it lets me get the darn things on there. So we learn something all the time. Like I said, I hadn't ever done this before, so this is all new to me. And this is most likely the approach that I will use from now on. So I just want to make sure I haven't smushed any of those other mushrooms. Oh, you can really see the difference in the color. My goodness, these are just practically yellow by comparison. Alright, okay. Let's do this guy here. This is actually a little bit faster to this method. Yeah, so we'll adopt this method from now on. Well, at least I will. Don't know about you guys, but to me, this is a little bit easier. And I hope that was on camera. See how I can just quite literally chop some of that away. And extend that out over. Alright, so that's good to know. And it's also not going to stick out quite so much once we have the paint on there and everything else. Will not stand out just so obviously from the tree. Alright, I'm gonna do a similar thing here on this end. Now I can get my flat one. So, well, okay, that is lesson learned. This is why I try and do new things on camera. I might look like a moron, but then maybe it just makes your life a little less frustrating. That is a sacrifice worthy to make. What we also have to do is get a smaller... I need to get some really small bits on here. See if that can happen. The smaller these get, the harder they are to mess around with. But it's still easier doing it that way. So we will just, yeah, we're going to stick with that method. So much easier than what I was trying to do on that other level there. But we have to go back to that other level and do like what we've been doing here. So I just can chip some of that away. Let's get this guy. Now I'm actually going to cut some of that away. That makes it a little bit smaller now. Alright, we got some fungus up there. Let's do some more on our middle section over here. And making some smaller pieces. And it's interesting. I was getting a little worried. I'm thinking, well, I made it. I had more of the yellow in there just to have it be able to stick easier. And that was the one thing that it just didn't want to do. It did not want to stick. Which just, that was irksome, to say the least. And I thought, well, the whole point of having more of the yellow in there was to make it stickier. Now, it stuck quite efficiently to me. Less efficiently to the place we wanted it to stick. You know, I'm just going to have to manipulate this one straight. Okay, so that's going to be that way. So we're going to put it up on top. Now the tree inverts a little bit there, so this could be interesting. But I want to get it over here. So see how we're trying to twist it around the tree? Because that's what I noticed on my pictures there. So it twists around the tree. And they are in real clusters too, so... Now, actually getting my hand in there is going to be tricky. And you know, I might even... Yeah, I'm gonna have a... Oh, this would be... If this works, I'll be very happy. I think a lot of my water has just kind of splattered all over the place. I don't have much of it left. What I really want to do... There it is. I want to have a tiny little piece up here. Of course, it's in the most difficult area to reach. Right in here. Okay, well, at least it's sort of there. I'm just trying to pinch that onto the... okay, I think I've got contact there. It's good enough, and now can I just get this thing to stick here? And I want it to be really close to this one. I almost smushed my... my fungus on the other side, so... Got to be careful here. Okay, we're really close to a fungus disaster. or a fungus emergency. I'm not sure what you would call it. Is that, yeah, it's this nice, somewhat small one. I want to get things a little bit smaller than that too. I don't want to forget this guy. Like so. Better. I really want that to stretch around the tree as much as possible. And getting the underside here. Well, I gotta get more water on this tool. It was really sticking. I was lucky I didn't rip that thing right off of the tree there. Oops, that was a bigger chunk than I wanted to take out of it, but it kind of worked out well in the end. Like I said, there's going to be so much foliage and other things, people may not even notice the stuff that's on there. I don't know. I had actually also thought about pine cones and the little kind of umbrella type things that form the shape of the pine cone, and just sort of sanding those down. I thought, no, I'm just going to sculpt them because I don't get to sculpt very often. Yeah, look at that. See, we got it wraps around the tree there. That's certainly, look, and you can see it still from the front, and then from the back here we got stuff for people to see. Oh, boy, that really, you can see how fast that starts to stick to it. Doesn't take very long. Not too long at all. Now it really, this is the part where it could get interesting. I'm going to try and add a bunch of these little teeny tiny ones here. Wish me luck. Wish me luck. I thought these would be actually easier than the big old ones, but one never knows. Okay. For whatever reason, I don't know. Look at where my hand is. How close that is to those mushrooms over there. Whoops. Almost forgot water on the tool. I'm really hoping that sticks because I like where it is. I like its shape. I really don't want that to come flying off. That one's getting awful close to it. I think we've got contact. I think we're all good now on these guys. So I'll extend him out. Make that go right along the tree. Now I suppose, like anything else, like chipping, weathering, streaking, too much fungus can be too much fungus. I don't know if you can have too much fungus, but I don't want to go just berserk with this. But it's given the tree some hint of flavor there. I think I'm going to put another little batch further down the trunk of this tree. And oh boy, this is going to be interesting trying to get these guys in here. We'll try. We shall try. I don't even know if you can see it, but just from a composition standpoint, I really, really want these guys here. Alright. Oh, that's going to be tough. That is going to be tough. I think I've got it stuck there. Can you even see? You can sort of see it. I think if I hold it this way. That's really, really difficult to get to. But I want to, see, I'm trying to get you to be able to see that from the front there. That's just, to me, it's really important. Oh gosh, this one's completely turned around here. However, I'm just going to really manipulate that really hard and see if it works. And I think I actually managed to do it. And I think you can actually manage to see it. It's relatively flat. It doesn't have a whole lot of shape to it, but then sometimes it's just about an indication of just like freehand, right? It's just a hint that there's another little cluster of mushrooms here. But now, see, it starts to really wrap all the way around the tree instead of somehow the fungus is just magically collected on one side of the tree. Now here, I don't want fungus to go there. I want to have some of that green flock in there. I think that would be fun to have. I'm going to get a couple of more small guys here with just the green stuff that I have left. See if I can work in a few more small ones and make an idiot out of myself again. And make this wrap around. If it'll stick, it doesn't seem to want to all of a sudden. Maybe I just had too much water. And the water is to keep it from sticking to me. But then the water might also mean it's not going to stick to where I want it to. Alright. And this one's going to be a little bit more separated, I think, from the main cluster. Wow, it's almost wrapping around back towards that other cluster, so actually that's not so bad. I don't mind that. I'm also trying to let these have a little bit of a shelf to them. And then see how we give it a bit of an undulation there. We don't want these things to be totally flat. And just like with the oil paint, see how this has been sitting here? It's already starting to, I don't want to solidify so much, but as I do this, there's a little less give in it, which is a good thing. A little less give. Alright, so I think that's not too shabby right there. You know, could I have made all of these smaller? I suppose I could. You know, it's pretty giant, but then there's some of the reference pictures I'm looking at. These things are gigantic. So, and I could go smaller with these here. I mean, really small. I'll just see what's the limit as far as size goes on the smallness of this. That's pretty darn tiny. I'm really going to have to basically manipulate that into being the right shape. And unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of water that's gotten on that. So I can start push that up, push it to the sides, create a shelf, not smush my mushrooms. See, I can just take away some of the extra. There's a lot of water in there. I'm not going to put any more on the tool. See, I'm kind of scraping that away now that it's attached. Sometimes you have to put some extra on there just to get the darn thing to stick. And then you can take it away afterwards. Alright, I got just enough green stuff here. One more tiny one left. Just indulge me here. This is more an experiment to see how small can I go with this. Oh my gosh, that's a small piece. And of course, a real sculptor would look at that and go, what do you mean small? That's gargantuan. Again, sculpting is not what I do full time. I don't even play a sculptor on TV. Although, I guess maybe this counts. Because if you're watching this on your TV, technically it counts. Now I'm glad I put these extra few here because, see, it really does wrap around nicely. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now, as this stuff sort of dries and such, what we're going to do is we're going to maybe do whatever little painting on him, just to show that you can paint acrylics over oils, and maybe even paint up our foliage at the same time and then attach it. So I think what we're going to do some painting next. We're going to paint foliage, paint him, do some little things here and there, and we'll be right back with that. So among the other colors that I threw out on the palette, I just thought I'd toss out some favorites here. We got some of the liner paints and clear red. These are from Reaper. And then you got some other pro acrylics here, including a few that boy, it's been a long time since I used these. So we got the bright yellow green and the green. I thought, why not? Let's just play with those. And here, I'm going to get some of our other items out of the way. I also have some of the vellum plants again from Wicked Elf. Last time I think we painted these separately. I'm going to try and just paint them on the... I can't actually remember. It hasn't been that long ago. I'm just going to paint them here still on the paper just because. Now, here's our guy, and we have just hit him with a little bit of the boom anti-shine. We've got, again, some pro acryl over here. We're going to get a little bit of our brown liner and green together over here. Make another little, nice little kind of an opaque greenish gray. We can even brighten that up a bit with some of that bright yellow green. And we'll just paint right over the top there. And you can see it covers just fine. It's not beating off or anything like that. It just sticks right on there. No problems. See, we can, even over there if I want that to be more green, or want it to be more of a brownish tone. We can do that too. If we want it to be more of an ochre and have it be even lighter, we can do that too. Well, just cover it, and I didn't put any, there's no varnish on this or sealer. This is just me painting the acrylics straight onto the oils, and it's not super thick or anything like that. Look, it's got a little water in it. It's not being removed or anything like that. So sometimes I do this just to all those people that say you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, I just kind of did. And then usually these days when they see something in front of their eyes, they say, well, that's just anecdotal. It just happened in front of your eyes. Well, that doesn't mean anything. So there's just no proven things to some folks. No proven things to some folks. And yeah, I'm going to be doing the other stuff, especially with the mushrooms and everything, but what I'd hoped to do was see if I can get a little longer brush here. No, I'm going to grab something. I'm just going to use this here. I want to get some more definition right in there. So there's actually going to add a little faded ultramarine with that green. It's not earth-shattering or anything like that. Again, the reason I'm doing this now is because we want the other stuff, our green stuff, to have a chance to kind of sit there and dry a little bit. What better way to pass the time than to do a little painting here? And yeah, this was stuff I did not have time to get to, because if you recall, this was a live Twitch thing, and I only had so much time that I could work on it, sadly. But this is the thing I was kind of hoping. As I saw what the time was, I said, well, if anything else, we can turn this into an interesting little demonstration of what you can do once the paint is dry. Look at this. paint some wood texture in there. I can sharpen up some things here. So it's certainly not the end of the line. Once the paint dries, you can still work with it. I just mixed brown liner with some of the faded plum. And remember, I know I've said it many times during some of these oil painting demos or videos or whatever you want to call them. This is what I thought would be the maximum that I could do with the oils, is just kind of get it to a certain point and then do the rest in acrylics. That's what I was prepared for. I didn't realize that, yes, I would be able to do more. But I thought this is what I would have to do, is just let the oils dry, do something to maybe seal it, and then do the rest in acrylics. Look at that. It just, again, it covers just fine. It's covering just fine. And people say, well, what if you rub that paint off of there? I said, so you realize just how much vigorous application of rubbing you're going to have to apply with your hands to make that stuff come off. Maybe you want to handle your figures in a slightly different way. I'm just thinking. That's just me thinking out loud. So look at that. Some nice. We're actually getting some purple in there. How's that? Like a purplish gray. Even on this little branch right here. Maybe lighten that up, get a little separation. It's kind of on the greenish side here. Maybe we indicate a little bit of like some bark on that, maybe. Why not? What do we got going on here? Not a whole bunch. Let's maybe get some shape onto this here too. Again, just hitting it with the acrylics. Having some fun. So for sure, and look at that, we're matching the purple that's right there. Can you see that? I think you can. I think you can. Look at that. It's matching that mauve color. Yeah, I'm gonna mix a little green in there. Oh, look at that. There we go. Kind of a greenish gray. Yeah, that kind of smooths out that transition a little bit. I know the whole point of oils was does its own smooth transitions, but again, I could only do so much on that live stream, and now we can do a little bit more. Look at that. I say it over and over again. Why struggle? Why also kind of pigeonhole yourself? It's got to be all oils. It's got to be all acrylic. Why can't it be both? Artists have been doing mixed media things for centuries. For a long time. Why can't we? What's to say we can't also do multi... I mean, you're already doing it anyways. You got a resin printed figure with tree bark and tree branches. You've got green stuff. So we've used a million different material. Well, maybe not a million, but we've used a whole bunch of different physical materials as far as the sculpting goes, for the base and for the figure and everything else. Why not just do the same thing with the painting? You know, some folks use mediums and stuff. Well, doesn't that count as an additional material too? Sort of does. Well, I can really get these. I'm going straight up faded purple here. Straight up faded purple. And we're going to take a little bit of our bright ivory there and make that I'd try and find a few nifty little highlights here. What almost are almost a little bit like bony parts or something. But yeah, a couple of nice bright highlights right there. That stands out nicely. That's just what was missing. I just didn't have time to get in there during that live stream. And now I do. Well, it's not infinite time because we also don't want this video to be a bazillion hours long. So we'll go so far with it. And sometimes there's an area where it's just where the oils need to be dry so that you can work on that sort of next level stuff. Like I think here on the underside of his face, some of these areas, it just needed to dry a little bit. I think it needed to dry so I could really get in there and just kind of play around with that. And have some fun with it. Yeah, I could also do the glossy type of stuff on his tusks there. Yeah, so there's just an area there that to me it was a little bit on the rougher side. Look, here's another area here. I'm gonna just develop a little bit more with this cooler greenish gray. Just because. Look at how that just flows right on there. It's not a problem. I don't want to be saying like oils and water do mix. Well, they, I mean, sort of do. It's not like we're not using wet oils and wet acrylic paints together. We let one dry, then we work with the other. And it can work the other way too. You could certainly have the acrylics be first. Let those, well, they'll dry fast enough. And then you do the oils over the top of those. Because guess what? Nobody's really going to know. Because if they can clearly tell, well, you must have used oils for this or that, or acrylics for this or that, well, something kind of went haywire, because it really shouldn't show at all. It should just look like paint and nothing else. That's it. And no time at all, we're able to get some nice little manipulations on this here. Let's get some things over here on his, I think on arm, back of his hand. Just really does not have much going on whatsoever. So we're going to change that. Some of this greenish gray. Take even more of the, that's again the Reaper brown liner. I'm even wet blending. I'm literally wet blending the acrylics together over the dried oil paint. And I know I've done a couple other videos, at least one for sure. I do know there's one, no matter what. But I think I might have even done it on another video as well, just to show you that this can be done. You can go ahead with your, let's use a little red liner in here. Yeah. There we go. That's how we're just, everything had too much, it was either yellow or green or brown. I wanted to get a little bit of a reddish color in there, courtesy of the burnt sienna, some of the red liner. And in here too. So I'm kind of changing up the color a little bit. And I'm going to wipe some of that away. It's almost like you'd never know we used oil paint at any time during this. Kind of, again, I'm sort of boosting up the brownish red here, knowing that I wanted to have some more of those greens come in afterwards. So thinking ahead, thinking ahead. So can we do a little bit of a change over here on that cloth, or who knows, maybe it's even skin. And I can maybe even do a bit of rust here. Get a little bit of a wash going there. Maybe I will really accentuate it. It's supposed to be a jungle. I will really accentuate some of the rust on there. Because why not? I will have a little bit of streaking going on. Because, hey, rust and streaking, not just for oils. Oh, here we go. See, and that's a watery, I mean, that's just pure glazes over that. It can be done. I'm just glad I thought of this, because I was about to just kind of do this stuff and then just take the pictures of it as usual. Now, the fortunate thing is that this is not, it's really not a commission thing, and that's what sort of let me stop and then take the time to do this sort of secondary video. So this is, you're sort of seeing the handiwork of the Patreon page at work, and that what it lets me do, because otherwise this is a commission thing. It's all of this part, adding the mushrooms, if that was the request, and then doing this secondary part here with the acrylics, you just wouldn't see it. It would be already out the door. It would be gone. And there would be no physical thing to show you, and that would be kind of sad. So there are big consequences, or positive consequences, or side effects, or some, whatever you want to call it, of having the Patreon page. It gives me the opportunity to do things like this. Look at that. That is basically a glaze right there. That is very watery, what's being put onto this thing at this point. Quite, look at that. I mean, this water is kind of running around all over the place. And yet, it sticks right to the oil painted figure with no trouble at all. And minimal sealer. I didn't paint a dozen layers of that Army Painter anti-shine on there. It just was basically a very thin layer of that anti-shine, and that's all it was. Nothing more than that. Here, let's brighten this up here a bit. We've got just too much. You have a whole bunch of midtones and darks fooling around, and nothing that really offers some sense of light there. So that's better. Yeah, that gives us a bit of separation now. Make some of these things look round. So very nifty, yeah. Look at what we can do. Again, all with acrylics over the oils. I figured for some folks, if at least if they just saw it, then they could be convinced. Let's play here with some of the red. That's the clear red mixed in with the faded plum. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna really try and get into some of these areas here with some. It's that same, I think that was the, not the quinacridone, but it was the sort of alizarin crimson type red. Well, we're just taking the same stuff here. Some of the same material, except it's the acrylic version of that same color. There's nothing magical or different about this. It's just a, again, acrylic version of the same color. We're just going to now manipulate it a little bit more into some of these areas and really, yeah. Here, let's emphasize these spines a little bit here. we gotta get something going on here. We're gonna take some of this. That's some of the green from Pro Acryl, and it's some of the what's that? The faded ultramarine. It's a bit like the phthalo green. It's a little bit what's lighter. This is that's very much like their phthalo green highlights that we did there. That gets it a little bit more towards the bluish green side. Just going to give us a little more separation, a little more, not just highlights, but also a different little kind of color contrast. I'm also going to get some of that into here. There, that's better. And I know some folks will say, well, that wasn't oil painted then. I mean, really. And believe me, it happens. I've had people that I did the turbo dork thing, because the areas that were painted in paints that turbo dork just doesn't make, or colors just you can't get with turbo dork paints. There were complaints that I did not do the entire thing with just turbo dork paints. That kind of a mindset, that's not going to get you very far. And you know, some of these things may sound kind of increasingly brusque or harsh, but I'm just at a certain point I get really sick of hearing these silly things over and over again. And yes, that is, again, it's an attitude that's going to limit you a lot. It's going to limit what you can do. And if you want to be limited, it is always your choice. It's always your choice, whatever you want to do. But it's not really pushing things very much to say, well, okay, this company just doesn't make this type of paint, or the oil paint doesn't do. There's this one thing I'd really like to have it done, and the oil paint's just not going to do that for me. Why be so, what would you say, held hostage by it? I don't want to be held hostage to the material. You know, could I have just, if I had longer with the oil paints, could I have done what I'm doing here? Well, of course, definitely. Could I have just done this in oils after it dried? Well, of course, because we've done that on Army Painting Series, for sure. But I thought there would just be a benefit in showing how I can just sort of manipulate this again after it's dried. Because, to be honest, there's going to be times, there will be some projects, there are some army painting projects where I'm thinking of actually doing this very thing. And it could be the Aussie arcs, maybe. But just be advised, there's going to be an army painting series where it'll be mixed media. It's going to be both. Because that might be, I think it's time maybe for, well, you've seen oil painting ones for sure. You've obviously seen plenty of acrylics, but you really have yet to see any sort of true combination of the two. Where we say, this is really where the oils are going to be better, but then turn it around and go, you know what? We've had fun with the oils. They were great. This is going to be easier for the acrylics. And it's not necessarily going to be, oh, okay, just the freehand stuff. It could be many different things. And maybe stuff that you don't exactly expect. Like right here, have we done any freehand? No. Have we really done any precise detail? Not necessarily. I've even changed some of the colors here. I'm quite literally, you can see I've been adding more of that cool green in here. Yeah, so I hate to say I've got, all these little sneaky things all these little sneaky ulterior motive things or something like that when I'm doing a certain project, but as soon as I kind of started thinking about this, I thought, this might be a good way to sort of introduce them to this idea of the mixed media, of not just using one thing and one thing only, because we certainly don't base that. We do every other part of the miniature in mixed media. Why are we not doing that with the paint? Well, we're gonna now. We are going to do that now. And what we're also going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of this red liner, some of the clear red. What do we got up here? We have some stuff that just needs some more. I would have loved to have done this with the oil paint, but see how the oil paint kind of gives us sort of a basis, you know, a nice little starting point for some of that manipulation. A good starting point, and then we'll add some more here. Down in those crevices. Maybe even get a little more down here. Yeah. A little separation there. Because why not? Now I'm going to go with a bit of the muted green here. Again, that's got almost a little bit of a bluish tint to it, so that would be, think of that phthalo green. That's what's giving that little bit of, just a bit of difference from our warmer greens. Alright, so that's going to do it here for this painting. The next thing we've got to do, and we're going to lift up this mushroom over here. There. What we're going to do is make sure that all of this stuff is settled here. Now see, this is, okay, good little lesson right here. This is what I mean. Where you've got to be careful with these guys, because you'll get your finger stuck in there when you least expect it. Now this is just manipulatable enough that I can give that a little bit of a fix in there. Everything else is safe, so we're all good to go. Now I'm going to let those now settle a little bit more. We're going to paint our foliage up, and we're just going to make sure that that guy's not falling over too much. So we'll get our foliage painted, and we'll do that next. Let's paint up some foliage real quick here. We've got our still got our colors out here. Clearly we're going to start off with some of the brown liner and that green. I'll just paint a bunch of these. I'll just paint a bunch of them and we'll see what happens here. Not really going to be concerned about painting in the lines. You actually want to get over the top. We didn't really use any of these smaller ones so much, I think, in previous videos, so I want to make sure I have a decent collection of these. Yeah, I think, yeah, we got a couple of the smallest ones here. I mean, we're not necessarily going to use all of these guys. We also want to have a couple of the ferns. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. And bam. Just going to paint right over the top. I'm not going to try and be too neat with this in this initial stage. I know it's going to be a little tough to see. Potentially. Yeah, I'm also going to use a bit of the yellow green. Remember, we took a much simpler array of greens when we did, I think that was on the, not the Splintered Fang, it was on the, well, we are going to use these on the Splintered Fang, but it was the Untamed Beasts. Yeah, it was the Untamed Beasts that I think we just had like that green, maybe the olive drab green or whatever from Creature Caster. I wanted people to know that I still use the Reaper Clear and Liner paints. It's not like I don't use them. I certainly do. Here, let's get back to these guys now. I'm really not joking about that multimedia aspect. I kind of forgot that. I guess as I was doing that base, I'm thinking, look at all the materials, and then we're going to use the flock too. There's a bazillion different materials that we are using on the base. And we've been sculpted in a few different materials, and yet somehow the paint, oh my gosh, it's got to be all one. Heck, for folks, that has to be all one company of paint. It can't be even any other company of paint. And again, I guess I can see why. Maybe it's a little easier to wrap your head around. But it's just you're limiting yourself so severely. And in a practical sense too, what if you can't get that stuff? What if the company stops making that stuff? Some of this whole thing where I'm finding different materials and stuff is generated by the fact that the stuff I used to use doesn't exist anymore. Or it may exist, but it's really hard to get. Or I just found something better. There's plenty of materials that have kind of evolved and changed into something else for one reason or another. Now, maybe I've been doing this a wee bit longer than some folks, because we are getting real close to the 20th anniversary of our transformation into miniature painters. Yes, it's been nearly that long. So maybe that's it too. Yeah, when you're the grizzled veteran, the ancient shellback, and you've seen more things come and go, sometimes you've seen more things go than come along. You're a little less, I don't know, dedicated or just stuck on one thing. But it has to be this thing. I've constantly had to say goodbye to materials. My favorite, the Reaper paints and the screw chop jars. I love those. And they no longer exist, but do I still use Reaper paint? We're using it right now. But the paint that I sort of grew up with, well, that's gone. It does not exist. It hasn't existed for years. And be prepared, because it will happen to stuff that you like too. As technology comes along and changes things, these are the things we just gotta adapt to. I see I'm even able to do, I think, a little bit more maybe with the branching out of the stems and the veins in the leaves here. Like I said, I also have to do the other side, but I am not going to bother doing that here on video. We will do that off camera, because we still have to get these leaves on there, and then we've got to do all the flock, and we've got to paint the mushrooms and the fungus, so we got lots of other stuff to do. I wanted to show you some different colors on the leaves here, and we'll paint some different size leaves, because I really think we only did the biggest ones and then a couple of the medium-sized ones and none of the smaller ones. And I thought it might be fun for you to see some of these too. Again, just using the number 8 round craft brush, keeping it simple. Essentially painting each of these leaves like it was a tiny tree, because that's kind of how leaves work in some ways. Oh, look at that. Very fun. Think of these also as the tops of the leaves, so that's why we're emphasizing more of the lights here in these veins. Now, as they get a little bit smaller, maybe not fuss so much about small things. Again, what I would I spend, an hour on each leaf? Well, I guess if you're doing the competition thing and you just feel the need for it, that's just fine. And then there's no problem with that. If the competition thing is what you really love, then by all means, as you push it further, maybe you see more things, more possibilities with it too. Here, I'm gonna do one last layer of light here. And you'll see it's not going to be everywhere here. Let's just take this off to the side here. And just a few. See that? It's not every last one, but just bring out a few different veins. Now this is where, if this is what I mean about, well, maybe if you want this to be more of a competition type thing, well then you, instead of a suggestion, now we start to dive a little bit deeper maybe into the lights and darks on the veins of these leaves. Give it a little more dimension. And with the nice big old tip on this, but well, not big old tip, it's a fine tip, but the hairs are very long. See, it holds an awful lot of paint, which means I don't have to be going back to the palette to keep getting more paint and retrieving more paint. I mean, look at this. This is quite literally like a tree. It's either tree roots or tree branches as we paint these out here. This is definitely more than what I did on those other Warcry figures. This is what I wanted to do this. There just wasn't enough time in the video to show that. Look at this. This is going to be so much fun. So we're combining a lot of different things, right? We're taking stuff from the mushroom sculpting video. We added another type of sculpting. We did these leaves in a different video. We've done the flock and the mushroom painting. We're taking stuff from a bunch of different videos now. We're combining it all into just one miniature. This is kind of the reason I came up with that whole painting pyramid name in the first place, because there were those sort of essential core things. Well, like the glazing, the shaded base coat, freehand, object source lighting, non-metallic metal. Those were the things that if you could get a grasp of those, a really solid grasp on those, then it would let you build to more things, to be more weathering, combinations of techniques. This is why I don't really do videos to just show, well, here's this one thing. There's this one thing you do on the miniature, and that's it. I try to do these combinations of skills or disciplines or whatever, because it's very seldom that you just need one. Right? You're probably going to need freehand on everything. You're probably going to need some kind of reflections or object source lighting on everything. There we go. Look at that. We have a nice big old collection of leaves there, right? Where's my other one? Here's my other one. Let's just see what we can do on this guy in the same vein, no pun intended. Right along here. Now I think maybe with these guys, either one of two things. I either have to think about taking these off of the sheet, or using, I guess, ones that have a little less. You can see these things are kind of getting in my way a little bit. And that was just me. I was trying to actually loosen those up before I got the paint on there, because I also didn't want them to stick too much. So let's do this one here. Nice, long, slender lines. And it may not look like it, but I am actually following in the center of where that vein should be on the leaf. I know you can't really see the leaves so much. Maybe you can on camera. Alright, and we'll do this one like so. And then we've just got one more frond left, and then we'll do maybe some. Here, I'll show you just a second. I think you'll see it right away as soon as I start to do that. I just want to get this last little frond in right here. And I'm just trying to, I don't want it to necessarily go all the way out to the end of the leaf. Now I could use a smaller brush, but just let's see what I can do with this. It's almost going to be a bit like a feather here. Let's take some of the paint off. And yeah, I think you can see that we didn't really do this in the other one. We just basically did the lines. But on this one here, we're just trying to maybe take it to a different level. See that? Just a indication where it's kind of coming out from the central little vein. Suggestions, because like I said, this, once you take them off of here, you don't quite know which, well, I don't know which one of these fronds is going to break off, because it can happen. I know it did happen when we did the other leaves too. There was a little bit of breakage on some. It's not like leaves don't break off on real plants. I think this, yep, this is it right here. So last couple of little manipulations there. So we've got ourselves some nice leaves ready to go. So our next stage, what we're going to do is we're going to paint up all of our green stuff. And once that's been painted, then we're going to add these and add our flock, and then hopefully we're done. And we're going to do that next. So our sculpted on parts, they've basically cured as much as they need to. They could cure some more, but I think they're good enough to go. I just threw some of the ebony skin primer here over the top of them, just to make them a little bit more tree-like and get some primer. That's the nice thing about the Steiner, is you can brush it on if you need to, and that's what we just did. Now what I did throw out here, right over here in this part of the palette, is your dark green dust. That's from Green Stuff World. Now I am going to show you this here, and we again used this in a different video, and this was really fun. So we're gonna shake that up, and we're just gonna put some of that out onto the palette here. You know, it looks an awful lot like the ochre over there, but it does have a different texture to it. That's the whole point of using that. I'll probably throw some more out there, but for now, let's just use that. And we also painted the other side of our plants there, the shadow side, I guess you would say, of our plants. Now, let's bring him back out here, and we're gonna work an awful lot like our little mushrooms down on the lower left-hand corner. We've got our brown over here. Got a little touch of our green too, but as I mix this with it, touch of the Green Stuff World, there we go. So we've got a nice sort of a darker green, and we'll pop that onto our shrooms over here. Gives them a nice dark green. Now am I going to do this on the fungus? We'll see. I'm thinking about it. I would like that to be a little bit different color than this. Maybe more like the references that you see over on the corner there. A little less green, perhaps. Perhaps a little less green, although I will throw a bit of, just a little hint of it here. A little hint of it there. It's going to definitely be more, I think, towards the tan when it's all said and done, but I also want that to be done more with the moss as far as the greenishness on the tree here. I will throw a little bit of that even onto this guy. Even onto this. We'll wipe some of that away. Might just give it a little different, slightly different texture. Always looking for different textures all the time. I might even throw a little bit of it, say, on this tree. Some of these branches over here gives them again another little different color. Maybe some on the ground here too. Although we have the Luke's APS, that ground cover stuff, so that's going to do some neat things. Now let's start to incorporate a little more of our. It's going to be a little bit more of that mossy color, and you can see it sort of radiates out from that central point. And this is how we did. Now I'm going to get some of that on this stump here. Yes, it's green, but it's going to be a very warm yellowish green, so I think that will give us enough difference there. And hopefully, I know his big old club might get in the way for some of your views on this as I paint these, or just the troll himself. It's kind of why I put so many of these on here, so that at least some of them would be where you could see them. And eventually this will be a little bit less of the wet into wet too as this stuff dries. But while it's there, I might just use a little bit of that. I know we did that in the previous video where I used this stuff. Here, let's get a little bit of the. I'll start to sneak some. Oh yeah, because like I said, we did that on the goblin guys, and I really liked that, and I was hoping that at some point I could try it again. See how light that is already. So I know it looks darker here on the mushrooms, but that's because you don't really have a comparison yet. Nothing to give you that context that we talk about all the time. Here, look at that. See how that's starting to change the. This is a little different look here on. And I don't want to go all the way up here. I'm looking down here towards the ground, and maybe even, I don't know, maybe I even keep it on one side of the tree. That whole, well, it's the moss always grows on the north side of the tree. That sort of little legend right there, which not necessarily true. I'm just thinking back to the old Boy Scout days. You know what? I'm gonna put some of that on here. 'Cause why not? Why not? All right, that. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get some over here too. Let's do that before we move on to another. We'll get some more of that. Starting to see it. It's ultra matte. Now, of course, it may next to some of the pro acryls, it would really not maybe show up quite so much because, well, the pro acryls are sort of ultra matte themselves. Now, of course, the oils, they're not really ultra matte, and that is why I thought of this stuff here. Oh, you know, that by default, just how we say, well, a lighter color makes whatever you put on next look darker by comparison. Well, now we're comparing the relative finish of something, where something is maybe more shiny than something else. But I do like, see, already, before we've even added all the flock and everything else, we already start to have a bit more of a little bit more of a color theme on our base here. And as these get even brighter, like I said, I'll do the tree fungus. We'll just do that separate here. I might still throw a touch of this lighter green on the tree fungus in some areas. But look at, we're really just focusing, and this is more brown than anything. Look at that. I mean, that just looks brown. That doesn't even look green necessarily. So I will make sure I don't get too far up that tree. Here, I don't mind it actually being a little bit further up because we got a little bit more of that tree being dead. I thought about throwing some of the tuft foliage on these trees. We shall see if that works. I also don't want it to compete too much with the troll, and that's that Woodland Scenics. Well, I think it's called realistic foliage. It's a little less spectacular to me now. I mean, I still really like it, but it's not quite as magical as it was. I think I've just found other ways of doing foliage like that, especially for terrain, where a lot more of it is needed. But for things like the bases, that little bit, it does prove pretty darn handy. That is not too shabby, that stuff. I guess what I'm trying to sort of convey here is that the moss and on the stones and your mushrooms, they're maybe not necessarily the same thing, but that's why the mushrooms are there. There's just so much moisture. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, you're getting much more of the mushrooms forming. There's some kind of dampness there. And I thought, well, I could maybe give it a bit of a little additional kind of a jungle feel to it if there's that much dampness and you got the moss growing. Also think about where that sort of might settle into some crevices there. So this is why I didn't go crazy with the oils there. So even start to get some of this onto his big old club here. One more texture, maybe even here on these rocks. It's not really going to add much in the way of value difference, but maybe in some kind of texture difference. That doesn't sound horrible to me. And again, some of these you may not be able to see everything that's being painted on there. Just bear with me. Yeah, so many neat little rocks and everything else that's going on, and I can't wait to get like I said, the Luke's APS, some of that dirt on there and the ground cover. I think that's going to look really nifty. Okay, we're going to go another round here. And I think you can see it really now is starting to look like our shrooms on the other side. Yeah, so mixing it with the green stuff world, sort of verdigris type of color, that gave us a nice little push towards the green. The brown liner from Reaper, that kept it dark. I kept it a little bit darker. Alright. All the way down to the ground there. And maybe touch more on some of the rocks. I'd even thought of, what was it, bandied about the idea of putting some on him as well. And I thought, no, we'll just keep it on our mushrooms here. Now we need to get this other side working too. It's a little tough to get to, that's for sure. And now I'm going to move this even over here so that I can just get even more of the And I know that we actually added some lighter colors to that, to this moss color. I could add some of that pale green perhaps to lighten it up. I want to see what happens when I mix this with another color. I don't know, I'll mix some with the faded ultramarine. We'll see what happens. It probably will just, again, turn another form of green. That would be for the tree fungus. Because I'm looking, I see that yellowish stuff over there. That might be a little more interesting than just a flat sort of a tan, kind of a lifeless color. So maybe that, hey, if I don't like it, I just paint right over it. And if I like it, then learn something. And I'm going to try and do some more of this sculpting of what, who knows, maybe we even do some of this on the splintered fang. Now that's another thing where, okay, yeah, that's going to add some time. That will add some time to the painting of that army. Now here I can't do this like bark. Now here I'm kind of painting it like it's bark. I don't want to do that. I want to paint it more like it's... See, I could almost just use a stipple brush for that too. What do I mean by stipple brush? I mean something like this here. Something like that. There we go. Yeah, just the same old craft brush that you're used to. You've seen me use before, but, well, now it's been turned into a stipple / dry brushing brush of all sorts. That's okay. Yeah, I can push that around a little bit. Yeah, I think this is just gonna be really fun. So many fun little textures. I really didn't expect to have this much secondary fun with this guy. You know, painting him was really fun. I enjoyed that, especially with the oils. That was a blast. But this is a nice little extra treat here. Getting to do the mushrooms again. And I have been... That had been sort of in the back of my mind ever since those little gobos that I did. Those were a commission thing. It was the whole idea of the mushrooms was to set them apart from other factions. And hopefully this also sets our troll apart here a little bit. Look at, there we go. That's giving him a nice little extra blast of color. Also carries some of these warmer greens and yellowish greens all the way down to the forest floor here. Gotta think about a little hint of lighter color on some of the stems. And now we'll just get a little touch of the, oh boy, not quite that much. And now we're going to get ourselves, oh yeah, just a few lights here along the edge, just like we did on the mushrooms. I don't want to outline this thing necessarily. It's kind of broken up here. So basically this little bit of painting also enhances the texture. We didn't really sculpt all this texture on, but we can paint some texture on. We're sculpting with paint, even though we sculpted with green stuff. And I realized this is just, it's the most basic and simple of sculpting. We're not exactly sculpting portraits here, but I really do want to try that. There's just something about that I think could be a lot of fun. And I don't know, it could be interesting to, sculpt either a character from history or, I'll see what kind of references I can find. I'll probably, my most likely inspiration source for sculpting would probably be some Alphonse Mucha because, well, favorite artist and all that kind of stuff. So don't be surprised if you see that happen. And I might even try and sculpt some of my old 2D art, and that's you got the things here. The blog scrolls across the bottom of the screen. You go over there, and I don't talk about it all the time, but maybe check out the 2D art section of the blog. There might be some interesting things there. I'm gonna just give a couple of taps with this, and that's that. That's it. Let's do a couple here too. I could use the sponges for that too if I wanted. All right. We'll just call that finished, and now we'll do so I just mixed some of the burnt sienna in there. Go back to my I'm trying to see which ones of these are going to be easy for you to get a look at. Might be these guys. There's going to be a little less of that similar shading like you saw on the mushrooms. And I also don't want to, I can only go so long on each segment here, so I may have to kind of divide that into a final detail. Actually, what I'm just going to do is really focus on this batch up here, because this is the one that's going to be easiest for you to see, because it's on the top. Because we want to get to our foliage as well. There's a bit to do there. Several different things combined. Now, I'm going to see what happens when I go to I'm going to get rid of the water here, get myself a new spot to work from. Okay. I think we've got that lined up for you to see. And we're just doing a little bit of our, see that sort of right there along the edge of it. It's not even, it's not a line or anything like that. Yeah, okay, I'm now really glad I did it. I don't know why I was just sort of obsessed with the kind of grayish fungus that really doesn't have much in the way of fun colors. I mean, we did all this other stuff. Why just put some boring dead gray fungus up here to have it be a little bit more. I didn't want it to be quite as bright red as that. That might be a little too distracting. But I think that gets the point across. And I might even go a bit lighter, even a bit more yellow. That's the transparent yellow from Pro Acryl there. And right in this, along this, I'm trying to get the lightest color here. So I think it successfully kept the color, or get that texture, ultra matte. Still were able to get some color variety there. Now I could take some of the burnt sienna here and touch of red liner maybe. Touch of the red liner. It's kind of on the watery side here. What I'm thinking about is where it meets the tree. No, I'm gonna have to make it a little bit more little thicker and a little less watery. That's better. Okay, that's more like it. That's more what I'm looking for. So now are those outer bands that we did, those show up a little bit better. Needed a bit more contrast. Alright, so what I will do then, I'll paint up the rest of the tree fungus here to match this stuff. And in our next stage, it probably is going to be the final stage, but we will do all of that flock and adding our tree branch, or well, tree foliage maybe too, but some of the ground cover, the vellum plants. We got a lot of stuff to add yet. But that's gonna be, yeah, look at that. I think that's pretty fun. See, compared to boom over there. Yay, I'm gonna call that a success. So we're gonna be back now with our vellum plants. So I tried to punch out the foliage as best as I could. There was understandably we had some breakage on the ferns. I think what happened was some of the paint got stuck in, see, like even here, the paint's kind of adhering some of these extra little bits. So I'm going to just, there we go, remove those. Now, remember we got two sides to our leaf here. That's your darker bottom side. And if you remember from the other tutorial here, we bent the base of this a little bit to just give it a little more rigidity. So let's see if we can't do that here as well. What I want to do is have more of a cluster of these too, since I have so many of them, and we don't have to spread these out over several bases like we did with the untamed beasts. Okay, so something like that. And then remember, we wanted to, let's give these a bit of a fold. We can do 2A fold, so we had it go down, and now I'll just kind of crease the ends here. So we have kind of, see, look at a little bit of a shape to it there. You don't want to make the leaf all kinked or anything like that. Now, what I might do is have each of these large leaves be at the center of a bundle of the mid and smaller size leaves. So that one kinked up a little bit easier than the previous one. What I'm trying to do is just avoid a bunch of leaves of the same size. Now here, that's going to be problematic too. I don't think I really want to do too much of the kinking that, but I am going to just position these here in a little bit of a set. So here's a small one, and then maybe two of those, and a small one, and then we might do some individual bunches as well. But I've got to get some bends on this too, so I might even just use the end of a brush here. Give that a little bit of a bend. And then a little bit of a twist. And we're going to have, let's just try one bundle here, and that's the area that I'm targeting there. I know it's not the easiest to see. I'm going to make these a bit smaller. Get as much space as I can here on the screen. Because this, like I said, it's not going to be the easiest operation. It's not, I don't want to say it's a clumsy thing, but you can see sometimes things just kind of go a little haywire. Alright, let us get ourselves a nice little hole somewhere around here. So I'm just drill this thing out best as I can. Make it wide enough. Okay, so we're through. And now let's make ourselves a little bit of a... See if we can't get a bundle out of this. Here's our big leaf here. I want to make sure. Okay. I really want to get some nice... Oh, I see there's a few. Just bear with me while I take some of these. There's a couple of extra pieces that are stuck in here. That's better. Is there one more? Nope, that's it. That's all of them. And I figured it would give me a little bit more of a bend on the plant too. Again, you want to bend them, but don't crease them. And some glue. Now, I'm even going to see if I can... Again, I don't want to widen that hole too much. Alright, we got some glue in there. Just shot one of my leaves across the table here. Okay, there's the first leaf. Now let's see if we can get some of our secondary leaves just fit down in here. Where's my tweezers? Yeah, this might take some finagling here. And now where's my small... This will be the biggest challenge. You're trying to squeeze in. Almost lost that one. Some of these small leaves. Okay, I'm going to have to do that with the tweezers. I can't get my hands down in there. Want to make sure I don't have any super glue on my tweezers. And here goes. Ah! Oh, look at that! Look at that! That went down in there. So we've got our three. We've got a cluster there. So move it over, just like what we tried to do with our other, like with the mushrooms and stuff, trying to make basically little compositions out of it. Now this, you know what, I'm not going to mess with it anymore. I'm just going to leave that be there, and I can bend it later after the glue sets. We'll just deal with that later. So see, we've got, look at that, nice little frond right there. This is another area we were thinking about. Another reason I'm targeting this is, well, I can drill into that because it's tree bark. I just want to make, do I want another large leaf over here? No. So this is going to be, the biggest leaf here is going to be, I think, a mid-sized leaf. And you can see I'm kind of rolling this around. I'm going to take a pan. We're going to basically enlarge that hole. Because remember, we can cover that with all the flock and everything. I know you can't really see that hole. There's a big old stick. Ironically enough, there's a fake tree covering up the real tree. Bendy time here. I wish I could get a little bit of a crease in that. It's just too narrow for me to do that. Now I would like this maybe to be a bit taller. Oh, and this too. Yeah. Let's add some ferns into that. Come on. Ah, there we go. All right, let's not have those there. Let's have them overlap a bit. Like I said, sometimes it's going to be a bit on the clumsy side. All right, give me some glue here. In with the ferns. And now I wish that would have stayed in there. I'm kind of counting on the other foliage to go in there and actually take up some of the space. Okay, that's just going to be that way. I also can't really see where the hole is anymore, so basically what happened is the glue sort of reactivated some things. So let's try this again. And now more quickly this time. Well, supposed to be more quickly. There we go. Alright, getting that thing in there, that's going to hopefully make that just sort of stay in place. Now let's do another small leaf. So we got clusters of multiple types of leaves now, not just these types, but even those. The two ferns that I was able to kind of salvage. I also have a smaller fern too that I was able to salvage. You know what, maybe... Almost thinking that should have been a shorter one. Maybe, maybe not. Nah. This is our shorter one here. Alright. In you go. Come on, don't stick to me. Ah, look at that. There we go. Look at that. That's, yeah. Sorry, I just kind of excited about that. I was looking forward to that. Now, I'm going to, instead of using a drill bit here, I'm just gonna shove in this, my pen. Do I have this oriented the right way? No, I'm going to give this a little bit of a bend, and I'm going to shorten that. Okay. Hopefully. That's it. See that little piece right in there? Boom. So now we've got, it looks like it's growing around that tree. And look, we've still got plenty of our stuff that we can use. Oh, I'm so tempted to put a leaf right here, but I don't know if I want it to cover those mushrooms. Let's give it a look-see there. What about back here? What about here? I'd like to put it there. But again, I got those couple of mushrooms there, so I'm thinking over here. Okay, which unfortunately now that means I've got to do this, because I got to drill right into some wood here. Not looking forward to that, but it is what it is. Normally I would have something softer there, like the tree bark. But I think when I put those mushrooms there, I kind of put myself in a situation where, as from a composition standpoint, I couldn't quite put the thing that I wanted there. Alright. That's in place. Ooh. Hopefully I can get this all nice and bent up the way we want it. Do I want this to be a taller one? No, I want it to maybe be a shorter one. So that means it's tweezer time. And I want this underneath the bigger one. If it's even possible to do that. Where's my... I try and shove that in there with my pen, and it works. Or not. That did not quite do what I was hoping it would do. Fortunately, I've got another one. So for whatever reason, maybe the hole's just not big enough. It doesn't want to go down in there. Okay. Can I... That's stuck in there. So we're going to modify our plans here. And I'm going to stick this one above it. I just made a new hole over here with my needle. You can't quite see it, and even there it's in shadow. Okay, we've got to try and straighten this out as much as we can. So I do apologize if this looks a little bit on the clumsy side. And once again, the hole kind of disappears. That is a really weird thing. I've not seen that quite happen before. There we go. Now it's there. And it didn't get turned upside down. I was just worried about that. Ah, there we go. Alright, so now we've got, see a big cluster here? We got that triangle shape. That's what I was after. Now I've got a couple of these little small leaves here. I've even got one here that I'm just gonna maybe put a little hole in here. So I think we're going to do the flocking in a separate segment. I try not to have this many segments, but this, I don't want to just rush the flocking part of it, because I think that could look pretty neat too. So I don't want to rush that too much. So here is, I'm going to see if I can't just throw in a little cluster here. All at once. So I'm going to hold these two together with my tweezers and see what happens. I gotta figure out just how I can get both of these in one go. Also not destroy everything else that's already there. So looks like I was able to get one leaf in here. I'm going to give this one another shot here. And I believe we have liftoff. And it's even going to go underneath that mushroom. Aha! Now that definitely looks like that's got some foliage on it. That's not too shabby. I know it looked a little weird at times. You know, it was but we got pretty much got all of our leaves in there. So what we're going to do next is we're going to try some of these flock things. It's not going to be terribly elaborate, just to, again, throwing a little bit of flock on that base, trying some things here, make it green. And we've also got that other third type. So I'm going to try these three things, and we'll be right back with that. With all of our leaves in place, it's time to add some of these different types of flock. So these two are from Luke's APS. I think this is the pine forest cover. This is the forest ground cover. I might just use a mix of those two. This is your fast drying basing glue, and then this is from Woodland Scenics. This is just a green flock. It's the fine green flock. We don't have any of that sort of more dead looking flock. Now here we will have two types here. We're gonna just mix some water with this, because we've discovered that thinning this down can actually, because we got the thick original just out of the container glue, and this is watered down slightly here. So what I'm going to try and do first, this is the real logical area to have it here, and I wanted it to soak in a little bit right in there. I'm going to get this glue out of the way, and we're just going to drop in a little bit of the ground cover there, not necessarily the bright green stuff, but see, it has a little bit of green in there. Now it makes the mushrooms and the shield look like it's sort of half buried a bit. We're going to do more along the ground here. Again, another reason why I didn't worry about painting the base. Now here it's going to actually have some thicker glue back to some of the thinner, and I don't, like I said, I don't want to cover up the base entirely with it, but in sections I will, and see, and even some sections I'm going to go a little thicker with the glue than others. Okay, and I'm just going to do this area here because I don't want the glue to dry on me. Yeah, I'm going to maybe stick with this here. Let me get my other flock out here too. So we're going to have some of our ground cover in here, but then also some of our green. And so yeah, there we go. See it, there's just now there's so many different colors of green. There's not just the green of the leaves, there's the green of the mushrooms. There's lots of different greens happening here, as should be the case. Now I think in these areas here we're going to do a combination again of the two different types of materials, but this is, I'm using the much more watered down stuff to get into here. But here at the base of that one mushroom, I am going to go a little bit thicker. A little bit on the thicker side. And out here, I'm definitely going to just throw more. This is the alteration between the thinner and thicker stuff. This is going to be thicker over here where our foliage went. First, some of this ground cover. I guess I won't mind if some of even the rocks work their way in. And you can see I'm trying to focus the ground cover stuff here, well, on the ground. Who'd have thought of that? And now some of this greenery, almost trying to get it kind of around the mushrooms too. Sometimes I'll knock it out and then do a second application wherever there's some glue that hasn't been covered. It's not just paint that takes two thin coats. Yeah, look at that. And go get more texture, more green. Not going to put anything on the trees yet. We're just worried about the ground at this point. I'm really just focused on getting the ground with whatever it needs. Now here we've got a lot of the, just not much going on around that particular tree. I want to get some by the troll's foot here. This is the watered down stuff. I'm just using this because it's going to get into some of these crevices here. So first up, I mean, there's some really nifty little chunks and pieces there. I might just use a couple of these here, and then we'll fill in the rest here. I'll try and get that by the troll's foot. And there's a whole bunch of, there's even what must be like 1 mil or 2 mil static grass thrown into this blend. So you can see this is mostly just the ground cover. Speaking of which, you know what, I'm going to try some of the other ground cover too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look at that. That's, I'm really liking that. Gonna get some of that over in here too. Alright, we're gonna swing around. We're working our way around the base here. I realize there's a lot of stuff in the way visually at this point, so I kind of noticed that. And I apologize that there's an awful lot of things kind of getting in the way of what you guys can see. There's really, when you got something like this with all these different layers, obviously this is not something that we could have started with. This is something that happens more towards, well, the end, for obvious reasons. Which means things will get in our way. I also don't want to cover up all of the nifty paintwork that we did, but I am going to stick with some of this color here. And then a bit more. Yeah, because I got so much of this here. If I put this, it would kind of kill some of that. So we'll leave that. We got one last area here as far as just the bottom line of the base is concerned, and there's some plants in the way here, so we'll just do this pretty quick. I'm gonna go back to this. Oh, there's even like a little piece of tree in here. Yeah, let's throw that in there. That's fun. It's quite literally just this big collection of well, stuff. All right, we'll move you off to the side. We haven't put any of this green down in a while yet, so off you go. We gotta get some over here too. And now, look at that. That branch almost looks like it's kind of part of that. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get just some of this watered down glue. Nope, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go the other way. I'm actually gonna build this up. So now actually it literally looks like there's a little tree stump sticking out of here. I'm gonna go with some of the green and some of this. So now, look at that. It looked like the tree is just kind of sticking out of the grass. And now I am going to cover up that hole that I drilled there. Almost forgot about that. Almost, but not quite. I'm gonna get some of my ground cover in there. And now it looks like it's literally growing out of the dirt instead of just kind of like, who conveniently drilled that hole for that plant to be there? Okay, that's settled. Let us do some mossy stuff on the tree, and that's I think where I'm gonna go. Okay, we're gonna go, those go away, this comes to the fore. We will water this down. It's almost, think of it like snow on the trees. It's going to be very similar to that. Boom. That's, and we just leave it. And I'm not going to put that other foliage. I'm not going to put that on the trees. I was thinking about it, but it would just start to compete. As much fun as I think it would be, that would have been the woodland scenic stuff. That it also increases the fragility of this, and we don't need it any more fragile than it is. Alright, how's this? Actually, the miniature is not super fragile. The miniature is 3D printed, so it's actually kind of a more solid resin, really, when you think about it, than a typical resin cast. But here, let's get some more of our font piled up on that. There we go. And we'll do a little touch of that maybe on our large tree for our finale here. I'll have some of it collect in here, because Why not? That's another reason why I like the watered down. It really sticks well. Even though it's watered down, it really does stick nicely. So I'm kind of getting that into some of the nooks and crannies of the branch there. And now we apply. Some more. Aha. Color, texture, the whole 9 yards. I'll do a couple more areas. Thinking like these here. Back to my green flag, and that's the Woodland Sanix flock. All right. I'm thinking here, maybe we'll expand on this a bit here. It's not much, it's just a little bit, but I want to only do it on that one side. Okay, that's better, that's better. And maybe we just kind of leave it at that. We don't go crazy with it. Now, if I wanted to, I could go back in and paint some other colors on these leaves, either darker or whatever. I could do some weathering powders on those leaves. I could put water on it. There's a lot of different things I could do. I could put my little butterflies on there. But I'm going to say this, we'll just call this completed as it is. We don't want to go too much further. We've used a lot of different things. This is our multimedia piece here, quite literally. Multi-paint. Like 3 different types of paint and glues and plants and lots of very fun things. So I just want to say thanks a lot, guys, because this, again, does not happen. I don't have something like this unless it is with your support. So it is always appreciated, especially during crazy times. And there's plenty more videos on the way. Still working on the waterfall stuff, especially now with all of these fun new things that literally I just keep learning these things. And I keep adding stuff to that project. So if you're wondering why you haven't seen it yet, it's because all of these new things that I learned, I just keep adding to that. So thanks again, everybody, and I will see you on the next one on Workbench 43.